I was going to read this story. It's called Curious George and the Birthday Surprise. Let's begin the story. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today is a special day, the man with the yellow hat told George at breakfast. I have a surprise planned and lots to do to get ready. You can help me by staying out of trouble. George was happy to help. So the man yellow has a surprise for George, and George will help out. Let's see what that surprise will be. Later, while George was looking out the window and being very good, he heard some tingling music. It was coming from an ice cream truck. George watched as a whole line of children and their dogs enjoyed some ice cream treats. It looked like fun. But when the ice cream truck moved on, George forgot all about staying out of trouble and went to find some fun of his own. Just like George wants some ice cream and the kids with their dogs are getting ice cream. But since the truck was leaving, I guess George is now doesn't want to stay out of trouble. But let's see how it will happen next. In the living room, George found noisemakers and hats. Could this be part of his friend's surprise? Before George could find out, he spotted some streamers, balloons, and colored tissue. He could not resist. He found hats, colored tissues, streamers, balloons, and party hats, and he's making lots of noises. So I think George, I don't know what he's doing, but let's see what will happen next. Decorating was easy for a little monkey. Still, George was curious about the surprise, and what was that good smell coming from the kitchen? George followed his nose. That looks really fun. George is decorating, but now he smells something good that's coming from the kitchen. Let's see, what could it be? And what's that good smell? It was a cake, and it looked as good as it smelled. All it needed was frosting. George had seen his friend make frosting before, but today his friend was busy. Maybe George could help. He could frost the cake himself. First, George put a bit of this in the mixing bowl. Next, he added a bit of that. Then he turned the mixture on, and the frosting whirled around and around. I guess he's making frosting for the cake. Let's see what will happen next. It's going around and around and around. It was whirling too fast, but when George tried to stop the mixer, it only went faster and faster and faster. George lifted the beaters out of the bowl. Frosting flew everywhere. So it went faster, whirling around in circles, and boom. Look what happened. Now there's frosting everywhere around the kitchen. Hi, George. Poor George. He did not mean to make such a mess. He had only wanted to help. Now he could clean up the sticky kitchen. Let's see. Just then, George heard the tinkling music again. The ice cream truck was coming back up the street, and George had an idea. Quickly, he opened the door. Uh-oh, he made a mess. Now here's the ice cream truck, and let's see what will happen next. Poor George. and invited all of the dogs in for a treat. In no time, the kitchen was as clean as a whistle. Oh, George. He invited the dogs in the kitchen and cleaned up the frosting. And now the kitchen is clean as a whistle, but let's see what will happen next. When the dogs finished their snack, George took them back outside. The ice cream truck was still there, and so was his friend. "George!" said the man with the yellow hat. "I've been looking for you. It is time for the surprise." George had found hats, games, and decorations and a cake. He was curious. Was the surprise a party? Who knows? Let's see what will happen next. Yes, it was a party. George was happy to see all of his friends. They were glad to see George, too. "What a great decoration," Bill said. "Yeah, what a lot of presents," said Betsy. "Why don't you play some games with the guests, George?" the man with the yellow hat suggested. "I have one more thing to do." Look, they're having a party with his friends, and this, I think, is George's birthday. Let's see what will happen next. And it looks really cool. Decorations. It looks really fun. When George's friend came back, he was carrying a cake covered in candles. This wasn't just any party, it was a birthday party. But George was still curious. Whose birthday was it? He watched to see who would blow out the candles. The man with the yellow hat put the cake down right in front of George. That was his surprise! It was George's birthday! The party was for him. Everyone sang happy birthday. Then George took a deep breath. Oh my goodness, that looks delicious, that cake. Oh, how sweet his friend made him a cake. That's so sweet of him. And made a wish. Happy birthday, George! And that is the end of our story. Well, I think what George was curious about the surprise, right? So let's ask Mr. Crow and Tigger. Hello, Mr. Crow. Hello, everybody. So, what was George curious about the surprise in the morning? Well, he was curious about the surprise that the yellow man that the man with the yellow hat was telling him a surprise, but he doesn't know it was for George. George doesn't know it was his. Yeah, so George was very curious. So George had to do all the decorations all by himself. Yeah, and when he was done decorating, he took all the games, the hats, and all the streamers and balloons, all that fun party stuff, he decorated the entire house. I know he did very quick, very good, George. And then he heard the tingling sound from outside. And what's the tingling sound coming from? The ice cream truck, silly! And there was kids lighting up with their dogs for ice cream. And George wanted to go outside and get some ice cream, but George remembered that he cannot go outside. He needs to stay out of trouble. Yeah. So then while George was decorating the entire house, what happened next? He smelled something delicious. And it was coming from the kitchen. What could it be? It was a cake. And George saw the mixer machine to make frosting, just like his friend does. So when he's making the frosting, yes, he was. But it came out pretty messy around the kitchen. So what did George do all that frosting in the kitchen? He let the dogs come in, and they were all eating the frosting. He did let them in? Yeah. And now the kitchen looks clean, all thanks to the dogs. I know. And then when his friend came back with with a surprise for him. I know, he told George to come inside the house. So when George entered the house, was he surprised? Yeah, all his friends were there supporting him, and they were cheering on George. They were there partying with him, playing games. They were wearing their party hats. Everything for George. Yeah, and the man with the yellow hat said to George to play some games with the guests while he went to go get another surprise for George. But here's the thing, George didn't know that surprise was for him. That's true. So what was the last surprise for George they gave to him? It was a cake for George. Yeah, and everybody sang happy birthday to George. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear George. Happy birthday to you. They were singing to him. And what was George? Did George make a wish? Yeah, he blew his candles on the cake and he made a wish to have some fun on this important day. And that was the end of the story. So what advice can you give to the boys and girls? Well, if someone is having like a party, you gotta help decorate your family, boys and girls. Yeah. Even though if it's a surprise, it's very secretive. So you can't tell nobody, okay, boys and girls? And don't forget to help out decorate, even for special events too. Yeah, like when family comes to visit, you gotta clean the house. And you gotta decorate your house like a party. Yes. And always come with cake. Lots and lots of cake. Not like cake, Mr. Crow. You make games too, right? Games and party hats. Yeah, that too. And balloons. But what would be a good advice for the kids? Always be yourself. And never feel down, okay, boys and girls?